Olivia was everything I thought I wanted. Tall, slender, with that striking brown blonde hair and a body that turned heads wherever she went. The first time I saw her, her eyes had that spark, like a kid seeing fireworks for the first time. She was 6 feet 2 inches, with the build of a swimmer, and I thought we were perfect for each other. Our friends used to joke that our smiles gave away just how much we were into each other, how obvious it was that we couldn't get enough of each other. For the first 2 years, everything seemed to be built on that raw physical connection between us, but it all came crashing down the night Olivia betrayed me. It happened at a party. She kissed Max, this massive guy, a 6 feet 10 inches basketball player, and then disappeared with him into his room. The next morning, I confronted her. She didn't deny it. She admitted everything. Her excuse? Alcohol. She begged me for forgiveness, said it was a mistake, and against every instinct I had, I forgave her. I told her that was it, though. One chance only. But, looking back now, I really regret it. Some of our friends told me I was being too hard on her, that every relationship had its bumps. The ones who encouraged me to forgive, they're in miserable marriages now. The ones who told me to walk away, they're the happy ones, still married and living their best lives. I should have listened to them. As time went on, I did what I thought I was supposed to do, moved forward. I became a programmer, and Olivia got a job as an administrator. We got married, had 2 kids, Mason and Grace, and life seemed to settle into a comfortable routine. But then Olivia started working in real estate, and that's when things started to change. She was working long hours, late nights, and I couldn't shake the feeling that something wasn't right. Every time she came home late, I'd remember Max, and the doubt would creep back in. That's when I made a decision. I wasn't going to be the fool again. I installed monitoring software on her phone and even planted a recorder in her bag. It didn't take long to uncover the truth. She was having an affair with Jack, one of her colleagues. The messages were explicit, cold, emotionless, but I still held on to the hope it was just physical. I tried to tell myself it wasn't about love, but I knew deep down it was just another lie she was spinning. Desperate to save our marriage, I threw myself into it. I cooked her favorite meals, gave her extra attention, and tried to create a warm, loving home environment for our kids. For a while, it seemed to work. She even canceled plans with Jack once, and I thought maybe, just maybe, things could improve. So, I planned a night out for us, a fancy dinner and dancing at a 5-star restaurant. We left the kids with my brother, and for the first time in a while, it felt like we were reconnecting. We laughed, we danced, and I even started to believe we could rebuild what we once had. The next day, we took the kids to a water park for a family day, thinking we were on the path to healing. But just days later, my hopes were shattered. I found a text from Olivia to Jack. "Looking forward to seeing you. I missed you." My heart dropped. I knew then that everything she'd said before had been a lie. I couldn't take it anymore. I remotely activated her phone's camera and saw Jack sitting there. The same man I'd met briefly at her office. That's when it hit me. This wasn't just about me anymore. This was about protecting our kids, and I knew I had to make a choice. Violence crossed my mind for a second. Just a second. But I quickly shoved it away. Instead, I started plotting. I had to expose Olivia for the person she was and make sure I secured custody of Mason and Grace. The first step came during Grace's concert. Olivia had a reminder on her phone about it, so I moved it to the wrong date, making sure she'd miss it while she was with Jack. Grace was devastated, but I told her that sometimes adults get caught up with work. When Olivia came home later, looking fresh but still in her work clothes, she apologized, and Grace reluctantly forgave her. She told Olivia she couldn't miss the next event. I could see the cracks beginning to form, though. I started tracking Olivia's habits, and soon realized she and Jack often met at a small restaurant that was known for its Scotch eggs. One day, I casually mentioned the place to my father-in-law and made a reservation for the following Wednesday, the same day they liked to meet there. That evening, after confirming Olivia was working late, I showed up with her parents. As soon as we walked in, I spotted Olivia sitting in a booth with Jack. I didn't try to hide it. I went right up to the booth, loudly enough for everyone to hear. Olivia's head snapped up, her eyes widened in panic, and she quickly tried to slide away from Jack, who looked like he wanted to crawl into the floor. We sat down nearby, and Olivia rushed over, trying to act casual. "Mom, Dad, what are you doing here?" she asked, forcing a smile. Her dad, clueless as ever, smiled back. "We heard about the Scotch eggs and decided to give them a try." He hugged her warmly, completely unaware of the truth. Olivia, looking more uncomfortable by the second, gestured toward Jack. "Oh, this is Jack, my colleague. We were just grabbing a quick bite before heading out to show a property." The moment we sat down, I could see her parents' expressions shift. My mother-in-law frowned, and her father shot Jack a suspicious glance. "We wouldn't want to interrupt your business lunch," my mother-in-law said, trying to sound polite but failing to hide her discomfort. Olivia faltered, but she quickly recovered, introducing Jack, who awkwardly waved at us, his face bright red. The meal was painfully tense. Olivia dominated the conversation, constantly steering the focus away from Jack, but her parents weren't buying it. I couldn't resist the urge to throw in a few pointed questions. "So, how long have you two been working together?" I asked, giving Jack a once-over. "And how is a nice guy like you still single?" My personal favorite, though, was when I turned to Olivia with a smirk. "Maybe you should introduce your sister to Jack. If they hit it off, we could all be family." Olivia's smile was so forced it could have snapped at any moment, and Jack, poor guy, was visibly uncomfortable. Finally, he broke the silence, stammering out, "No thanks, I have a girlfriend." I leaned forward, the sarcasm dripping from my words. "Oh, is it someone we know? Or are you keeping her a secret?" Jack grinned awkwardly, then said, "She's in a tough relationship and trying to get out of it. I don't feel comfortable saying who it is." The smirk quickly disappeared from his face as he realized the attention he was getting, especially from Olivia, whose face had gone ashen. When the food arrived, it was clear to me that the tension had eaten away at everyone's appetite. My in-laws barely touched their plates. I hardly ate either, and Olivia noticed. "Is the Scotch egg good?" she asked, trying to sound cheerful. Without breaking eye contact, I flatly responded, "I've lost my appetite." Her mother, clearly trying to avoid further drama, called the waiter over and handed him a $100 bill to cover the meal. Then, with a quick glance toward Olivia, she excused herself, saying she needed the restroom. Her father, quietly seething, took the change and glared at Jack like he was something rotten. He stood up to follow her. I didn't wait. I pushed my chair back and stood, addressing Olivia and her lover with quiet venom. "Sorry to interrupt your little business lunch," I said, my voice cold. "I'm sure you've got a lot to discuss, and more people to deceive." With that, I walked out. Olivia hurried after me, catching up as I unlocked my car. "It was nice seeing you at lunch," she said, her voice thin and nervous. "We can talk about this at home. My parents will be here in a second." Her voice wavered as she glanced over her shoulder. Her parents, red-faced and obviously embarrassed, were hurrying out of the restaurant, refusing to even look at Jack as they rushed toward my car. Olivia lowered her gaze, mumbling, "It's probably better this way." Her parents hugged her briefly before climbing into my car. The ride home was dead silent. When I dropped them off, Olivia's mom gave me a tight hug and said, "You're the son I never had. I love you." Her father, gruff as always, added, "Bring the kids over soon. I miss them." It broke my heart. I realized then how much Olivia had betrayed not only me, but her own parents. It was almost worse, given her family history. Years ago, they disowned her younger sister, Lily, after she cheated on her husband. Lily was practically erased from family events, her name hardly ever spoken. Once, she even tried to attend her ex-husband's church, and Olivia's father had stopped the sermon, apologized to the pastor, and left without even acknowledging Lily. That evening, Olivia came home, her demeanor annoyingly cheerful. She claimed her dinner with Jack had sealed some big deal. "It's inappropriate to have dinner alone with an unmarried man," I said bluntly. "I don't want you near him anymore, and I definitely don't want you going out to dinner with him again." She sighed, fighting to look innocent. "If it bothers you that much, I won't meet him for lunch anymore," she said, like it was no big deal. "Don't worry, we're just business partners." Her casual tone made my blood boil. "I'll be sleeping in the guest room," I said, my voice firm. "And I want you to apologize to me, and to your parents." Olivia's expression shifted to alarm. "You're making a mountain out of a molehill," she snapped, her defensive attitude only confirming my suspicions. At least now I had an excuse to avoid intimacy with her. For the next few days, I decided to take matters into my own hands. I installed a remote switch in both Olivia's and Jack's cars, just in case. I also sabotaged her car's transmission sensor, ensuring that no mechanic would easily find the problem. My chance came one afternoon while I was at Mason's football game. Olivia, thinking I was occupied, decided to spend time with her lover. I remotely shut off her car while she was at his apartment. When Olivia tried to leave, her car wouldn't start. "What's wrong?" Jack asked, looking clueless. "The battery works, but the car just won't start." She was frustrated. "Call a tow truck," she snapped, avoiding any further complications. Jack offered to drive her home, but she refused. "If my husband sees you dropping me off, it'll cause a huge problem." After arranging for a rental car, she realized she was late picking up Grace for her band competition. Fortunately, Grace called me, and I left Mason's game early to pick her up. I also arranged for a friend to take Mason home. By the time Olivia finally came home, still in her work clothes but freshly showered, I was already there with Grace. Olivia tried to play it off, saying, "I'm so sorry. The car broke down, so I rented a car. But your dad picked you up first." Grace wasn't buying it. "This is the second time you've missed one of my performances, Mom. I hope work is worth it," she said before storming off to her room. Later that night, I confronted Olivia. "I called your office after lunch," I said, keeping my voice even. "They told me you left hours ago. You had plenty of time to pick up Grace. What were you really doing?" I asked, my voice cold. Olivia froze, her eyes darting around as she scrambled for a response. "I was running errands. I thought I had enough time. I didn't expect the car to break down." "What errands?" I pressed, not letting her off the hook. She sighed, her answer vague and evasive. "Just some things that needed to be done." "Well, I hope those things were worth more than your daughter's trust," I said, my words sharp. Without waiting for her to respond, I turned and walked to the guest room, leaving her to stew in her guilt. It was becoming painfully obvious that Olivia didn't care about missing out on our kids' activities. Time and time again, she chose her lover over her family. Even the mechanics couldn't figure out why her car wasn't working, and I could see the frustration building inside her. Meanwhile, Grace wasn't letting her off easy. "Mom, you said you'd take me and my friends to the mall on Saturday," she said one afternoon, her voice dripping with sarcasm. "Can you let me know now if you're not driving us? We don't want to be stranded if your car breaks down again." Mason overheard and burst out laughing. "Nice one, Grace," he said with a grin. The kids were starting to feel neglected, and it didn't take long for me to realize how much their respect for Olivia was slipping. Later that evening, Olivia came to me, clearly annoyed. "Can you talk to the kids? They're not showing me any respect," she complained. I gave her a flat look. "I'll think about it once you apologize to me, and to your parents," I replied from the guest room. She stormed off, muttering about how my stubbornness was the real problem. On Saturday, I took Grace and her friends to the mall myself. Olivia claimed she had work to do, but later that day, I found her car parked at a house for sale, clearly not at work at all. When we got back home, Grace made sure to loudly thank me for taking her and her friends, making sure Olivia could hear every word. Then, as if to rub salt in the wound, she called one of her friends, ignoring Olivia's attempts to ask about the outing. Olivia looked ready to complain, but I stifled a laugh. Instead, I grabbed a drink and locked myself in my office. Olivia came home later, still wearing her work clothes, but the faint scent of freshly showered skin betrayed her. It was obvious she had been up to something while she was supposedly showing a house. I could only hope that at the very least, she had the decency to change the sheets. With Mason's birthday coming up, I threw myself into planning. I booked 6 bowling lanes for family and friends, determined to make the party run smoothly. Finding a venue that didn't have a Wednesday night league was tough, but I pulled it off. When I told Olivia about the plan, she looked uneasy. "You can pick up the cake and candles," I said, "while I take the kids and their friends. We'll eat pizza, open presents, and then bowl." She nodded, but I could tell where her real priorities lay. The week before, I had sabotaged her lover's car multiple times, making sure they had to reschedule their meetings. When they finally managed to meet on Tuesday, I disabled his car again, adding yet another layer of frustration to their plans. By Wednesday, Olivia texted him, "Looking forward to seeing you a little later this afternoon." That same day, I confirmed via her GPS that she was at his apartment. It was time to put my plan into action. I rented a car with a spacious trunk and filled it with a covered cage containing an angry skunk. Then I drove to her lover's place. Using a door ram, I smashed open the door and activated a taser attached to the cage, releasing the skunk into the apartment. I didn't stick around to watch the chaos unfold, but I did listen through Olivia's phone. The screams and frantic voices were everything I had imagined. Eventually, her lover called the police, reporting a wild animal in his apartment. When the officers arrived, guns drawn, the skunk lunged at them, spraying its foul stench everywhere. The smell was so overwhelming that the officers vomited before slamming the door shut and calling animal control. Hours later, 2 very smelly officers returned to question Olivia and her lover, followed by 2 more officers who quickly left, unable to tolerate the stench. One officer asked, "Who owns this apartment?" "I do," the lover replied, turning to Olivia. "And who are you?" Olivia, flustered, stammered, "I'm just visiting." The officer raised an eyebrow. "Do you have ID?" Olivia protested. "Is this really necessary? I just got attacked by a skunk." Still, she handed over her ID. "Do you know him?" the officer pressed. "We work together," Olivia replied nervously. The officer wasn't satisfied. "What were you doing here?" "I was picking up documents," she lied quickly. The officer's patience was clearly running thin. "Then why was there a skunk in the apartment?" Before Olivia could respond, her lover blurted, "It was a birthday present." The officer's eyebrows shot up. "Did you seriously buy an adult skunk for your boyfriend?" Olivia quickly interrupted, her voice sharp. "He's not my boyfriend." The officer's disbelief was palpable. "Stop lying. Why would you buy an adult skunk as a gift?" Olivia thought fast. "I didn't. I bought a baby skunk because he said he loves them. But I guess it turned out to be an adult, and it attacked him." The officer grimaced at the stench. "Do you buy expensive pets for all your coworkers? Or just your boyfriend?" Olivia stayed silent, avoiding the officer's gaze. "And what about the broken door?" the officer asked. "I broke it yesterday," her lover admitted, his voice dripping with embarrassment. The officer stared at them for a long moment, clearly struggling with the absurdity of the situation. Finally, he said, "I know this is all a lie, but I can't stand the smell anymore. You and your boyfriend can leave, because you both smell worse than us." With that, he slammed the broken door shut behind him as he left. "What the hell was that?" her lover exclaimed, his voice thick with frustration. Olivia, always quick with an excuse, sweetly responded, "I don't know, but it's just another problem to deal with. We can't exactly tell them someone broke your door and released a skunk in your apartment," I said, my tone flat. "Why not?" her lover asked, confused. "Because they'd just ask my husband if he did it. And if he doesn't know, they'd tell him I was here," Olivia responded, her voice suddenly icy. She paused, then turned on him, her tone accusatory. "Be honest. How many other women are you seeing?" The lover looked offended, his face reddening. "No one," he said indignantly. Olivia wasn't convinced. "When was the last time you slept with someone other than me?" she pressed. He hesitated, then muttered, "About a month ago." Olivia's eyes narrowed. "You've been sleeping with her this whole time?" He hesitated again. There was another one. 6 months ago, he admitted reluctantly. Olivia let out a frustrated sigh. Great. Now I'm sure this is revenge from one of their husbands. I'll find out if my husband did this. Her phone rang, cutting through the tension. Hey, Olivia. Have you picked up the cake yet? I asked, my voice purposefully calm. She swore under her breath, clearly agitated. Damn, I'm stuck at work. Leaving now, she lied. I didn't let it slide. Don't let Mason down, I said firmly. I'm on my way, Olivia replied, her voice tight, and she hung up abruptly. She showered, changed clothes, and rushed out the door, but not before I remotely disabled her car. It took several failed attempts before the engine finally sputtered to life again, only to break down 3 more times on her way to the bakery. By the time she arrived at the bowling alley with the cake, she was late and clearly frustrated. When she walked in, the overwhelming stench of skunk filled the room. Everyone instinctively covered their noses and coughed. Mason, clearly embarrassed, pulled her aside. Mom, maybe you should just go home after the party, he suggested. On the drive home, Mason asked, why does Mom always miss our events? I thought carefully before answering, not wanting to throw Olivia under the bus in front of him. She tries to do what's best for the family, but sometimes it's hard to be in 2 places at once. He shook his head. But you're always there for us and you make more money than she does, he pointed out matter-of-factly. I have a more flexible schedule, I said, trying to keep it light. So, it's easier for me to be with my favorite skunks, I joked, my eyes glinting. Grace groaned from the back seat. It's not funny, Dad, she said, though I could see the corners of her mouth twitching as she tried to suppress a smirk. It'll be funny when you tell your friends at school tomorrow, I teased. We ended up tossing the cake, smelly and ruined, which the kids found hilarious. For the first time in days, I felt some relief. I was glad to sleep in the guest room that night. A few days later, I noticed Olivia acting strangely. She was sniffing around the upholstery in my car, looking like a mouse searching for cheese. I decided to follow her upstairs and caught her sniffing my shoes. Curious, I quietly recorded her, though I never asked why her own car didn't seem to smell like skunk. 2 Saturdays later, I announced I needed to run to the hardware store. No one wanted to come with me, so I went alone, heading straight for her lover's apartment. His car was parked out front. I knocked on the door, and when he opened it, I said, I think we can help each other. I'm Olivia's husband. Can I come in? His face went pale as I stepped past him and sat at the kitchen table. The apartment smelled like a mix of fresh paint and skunk, and I noticed all the furniture was new. I know you've been seeing my wife for over 6 months, I said flatly. He stammered, trying to cover, Hey man, we're just friends. I raised an eyebrow. Would it help if I showed you photos and videos of your friendship? I asked coldly. He hesitated. I don't know what you're talking about, he muttered, his voice growing defensive. Let's skip the nonsense, I said. I don't care about you. I care about what my wife is doing. So, instead of hiring a detective to get dirt on her, I'm offering to pay you for it. He blinked, clearly stunned. You want me to make a video of me with your wife? That'll cost $2,000, he said after a pause, gauging my reaction. Yes, I'm serious, I replied, keeping my voice level. $2,000 for a clear video showing her face and body, plus a written statement from you that you took the footage and allow me to use it. He stared at me for a long moment. If you already have evidence, why do you need this? For leverage in the divorce, I said bluntly. That's cruel, he whispered. Like how she betrays me and her kids? I countered, my voice sharp. He nodded reluctantly. Fine. $2,000 and I won't tell the other husbands about their wives. I'll even arrange a spa day for you and Olivia at a hotel. Make it $3,000 and we have a deal, I added. But don't tell Olivia. I'll arrange the spa and hotel on Monday, and I'll call you to pick up the video and pay you in cash. All clear? He asked, nodding. All clear, I confirmed. Make sure her face is visible in the footage, I said, before getting up to leave. The following Wednesday evening, I casually mentioned to Olivia, "I have a conference this Saturday. Will that be a problem?" "No, sounds like a relaxing weekend," she replied nonchalantly, oblivious to my plan. The following Monday, I met her lover at a secluded rest stop. I checked him for recording devices and led him to my car. "Do you have what I need?" I asked. He handed me a flash drive, which I verified on my laptop. "This is perfect," I said. "Do you have the consent form?" He passed me an envelope, which I photographed for safekeeping. After handing him an envelope of cash, he counted the bills twice, grinning. "If you need another video, let me know," he said, as if the whole situation were a business transaction. The worst decision I ever made, her lover said the next day when I shared everything with my brother and his wife. Photos, videos, and a list of Olivia's dates, highlighting the family events she'd missed. I made sure to detail the moments she'd chosen to be with him instead of us. Then, I did the same with my parents and Olivia's, asking them to keep quiet until I gave the okay. Wednesday afternoon, while Olivia was at her lover's place, I sat the kids down. "Mom is infatuated with another man," I began, my voice heavy, "and I'm not sure if she still loves me." They stared at me in shock. "Are you getting a divorce?" Mason asked, his voice small and uncertain. "We'll discuss it with her soon," I replied, trying to sound calm. "Right now, she's at his apartment." Both kids shouted in disbelief. "She's there now." I showed them her car's location on a GPS tracker. Grace's eyes welled with tears. "Is this why she misses our events?" she asked, her voice barely a whisper. I nodded, pulling out a detailed list of Olivia's absences. Every missed school performance, every family outing she had ditched in favor of him. I even showed them a time-lapse of her movements on Mason's birthday and Grace's concert day. When they saw how long she'd stayed at her lover's place, the realization hit hard. They cried. "Damn that skunk," Grace muttered through shaking breaths, referring to the incident at the bowling alley, where the cake had been ruined by the lingering stench of the skunk I'd set loose. I pulled them into a tight hug. "The most important thing is that I love you both," I reassured them. "This is between your mother and me. We'll do everything we can to remain a family." We spent the next half hour crying, talking, and comforting each other. But then Olivia walked in. She took one look at our faces and froze. "What's going on?" she asked nervously. "Kids, go to your rooms while Mom and I talk," I said, my voice firm. They hugged me tightly before shooting Olivia a cold glare and walking upstairs. Once the kids were out of earshot, I closed the door and faced her. "Sit down," I said firmly. Olivia hesitated, her voice trembling. "What's going on?" "I know you're having an affair," I said bluntly. Her face fell. "Oh God, no. That's not true. I would never cheat on you. Why would you say that?" She stammered, her eyes filling with tears. "If you won't tell me the truth, this conversation is over," I said, my tone steely. She shook her head desperately. "This must be a mistake. Someone must have misunderstood something." I sighed, the exhaustion in my chest settling. "We're done for today. Think about what you're doing to this family. We'll talk tomorrow. Until then, don't talk to me or the kids." I left her standing there, her protests trailing behind me as I walked into the guest room. A while later, I heard her pleading softly through Grace's door. "Grace, what did Daddy tell you? It's all a mistake. Please open the door so we can talk." Grace texted me. "Can you make her stop?" I replied. "She's denying it, so there's no point in arguing." Grace hesitated before texting back. "Are you sure?" I sent her the proof, photos and videos of Olivia and her lover, naked together, from multiple angles. Her only reply was, "Oh." I opened Grace's door to find Olivia standing there, her face a mixture of desperation and fury. "Leave the kids alone until we resolve this," I said coldly. "You're making it harder for them." Olivia's eyes flashed with anger. "What did you tell them?" "I told them the truth," I said, my voice sharp. "You're involved with another man. This is between us. Leave them out of it." She went to the bedroom, crying late into the night. The next day, I waited at the kitchen table for her to return. The kids were staying with friends. When she walked in, I gestured for her to sit. "Have you thought about what you're doing to this family?" I asked, my voice icy. She nodded weakly, unable to meet my gaze. "Are you ready to talk honestly about your affair?" I pressed. She hesitated, then nodded again. "So, what do you have to say?" I asked. "Is it just a misunderstanding?" She sighed deeply, like the weight of her lies had finally caught up with her. "Yes," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. "I had an emotional connection with him. We had lunch a few times, but that's it. I love only you. If you're lying, this conversation is over," I said flatly. "We'll talk again Saturday at 9 o'clock. The kids will stay with my parents until then. Think about your actions." I turned and walked into the guest room, closing the door behind me. Saturday morning, I had breakfast with the kids at Olivia's parents' house. When I returned home, Olivia was sitting at the kitchen table waiting for me. "Are you ready to be honest?" I asked, my voice cold. She nodded, her eyes rimmed with exhaustion and regret. "Did you tell my parents?" I pressed. "Yes," she whispered. "And your parents?" "Your brother," I asked again, not letting up. She nodded again, her voice trembling. "How could you do this to me?" she asked, her voice cracking. "You lied to me, the kids, and our parents. You've turned everyone against you." I stared at her, my face hardening. "You kissed him a couple of times, and that's it? That's your story?" Olivia's voice grew defensive. "Since you still refuse to be honest, this conversation is over," I said coldly. "The kids will stay with their grandparents. I'll work from home and sleep in the guest room. We'll talk Tuesday after work. Think about what you've done to this family." I left, shutting the door on her protests. That evening, after dinner with the kids and my parents, I returned to find Olivia sitting in the living room. "We'll talk on Tuesday," I said, heading to bed without sparing her a glance. Over the next 2 days, Olivia's friends began texting me, urging me to forgive her. They called it a misunderstanding, an innocent mistake. I video called them, showing them undeniable proof of the affair. Their apologies were swift and awkward, and they cut off contact with her. On Tuesday evening, when Olivia came home, she looked exhausted. She brought takeout from our favorite Italian restaurant and set a plate down for me. "The days when you have to figure out what lies to tell everyone must be exhausting," I said dryly. "No one talks to me. They think I'm a monster," she said softly, her eyes hollow. "Lies have consequences," I replied, my voice cold. "You showed everyone the monster inside you." Olivia's eyes were bloodshot, her face pale. "They told me you showed them photos and videos of me with him." "Yes," I said simply. "Can I see them?" she asked, her voice weak. "No one will let me see them," she murmured, as if it were a plea for validation. I looked at her flatly. "Yes, if it helps," I said, my voice cutting through the tension. "I didn't let anyone make copies. I don't want our family ridiculed," I said, showing her the evidence. Olivia stared at the photos and video, her face drained of color. "I love you so much. Can't we just forget this mistake?" she pleaded, her voice barely audible. "How strong was your love for me that you had to be with someone else?" I asked coldly, my words biting. She faltered, her hands trembling. "I never loved him," she whispered, eyes downcast. "Marriage is about shared responsibilities, trust, and fun." I continued, my voice steady, though my heart was sinking. "I carried 100% of the responsibilities, all the trust, and none of the fun while you partied. You stole my love by giving yours to someone else." Olivia's voice was barely audible when she spoke. "How long have you known?" she asked, her eyes now filling with tears. 7 months, I replied flatly. She wiped her face, still trying to collect herself. "Why did you wait so long?" she asked, her voice trembling. "I hoped it was a one-time mistake, and that you'd admit it, because you always said you loved me," I said, the words tasting bitter in my mouth. "I was wrong. I'm sorry," she whispered, her voice breaking. How can I trust you now? I asked, my gaze unwavering. Because I love you, she replied, her voice desperate. I'm telling the truth now. Is this the same truth you told me in our last 3 conversations when you denied everything? I shot back. Olivia fell silent, her eyes glued to the floor. I could hear the quiet sobs she was trying to suppress. What can I do to make things better? She asked, her voice trembling, almost pleading. I placed an envelope on the desk in front of her. This is a post-nuptial agreement, I said, my tone sharp. Sign it, and I'll consider taking you back. But we'll need therapy for us, and for the kids, to make this work. Olivia's face hardened. I don't want to sign a post-nuptial agreement, she replied, crossing her arms stubbornly. Then we're done, I said coldly. It seems like you're more concerned about your financial future than our marriage. She hesitated, glancing at the envelope. What's in it for me if I sign? She asked, her voice low. If one of us files for divorce, I get 70% of everything, I said, watching her carefully. If I cheat, it's 50-50. If you cheat, I get 85%. In all scenarios, I get full custody of the kids. I let the words settle in the room, my gaze unwavering. Take it to a lawyer if you want. You have until Saturday morning to decide. Olivia frowned, trying to change the subject. Aren't you going to eat? I ordered your favorite meal. I couldn't help the dry laugh that escaped me. After all the lies and everything you've done, should I expect the arsenic sauce to be fresh? Tears welled in her eyes, but I just turned and walked away. The next day, I visited Olivia's office while she was out. I requested a meeting with the office manager, an older woman whose husband owned the company. How can I help you? She asked curtly, already looking annoyed. This is about my wife and a coworker she's been involved with, I said, my tone calm, steady. The manager's expression turned wary. Do you have evidence? She asked, her tone tightening. I played short voice recordings and showed her incriminating photos. The manager's lips tightened as she took in the evidence. Can I assume my wife will be fired immediately? I asked, my gaze sharp. Yes, along with her lover, she replied coldly. You can't fire him, I said, my voice low but firm. I recorded my wife, not him, and this isn't admissible in court. I don't want to risk a lawsuit, and I doubt you do either. The manager nodded reluctantly, her face a mixture of concern and guilt. That evening, Olivia came home, tears streaming down her face. I lost my job, she said, her voice thick with frustration. I looked at her, emotionless. We'll talk Saturday, I replied, my tone cutting. Saturday morning, Olivia handed me the signed postnuptial agreement. I reviewed it carefully, then sent an electronic copy to my lawyer and locked the physical copy in a safe. Here are the new house rules, I said, my voice steady. Good behavior from you and we'll start counseling. I'll also let the family know we're trying to repair our marriage. Olivia's eyes flashed with resentment. Are you really going to pretend everything is fine? Because I'm not sure I can keep up with this charade, she spat. Secretly, I had no intention of scheduling counseling. I already knew this marriage wouldn't last. But I needed her to believe that I was still invested. Olivia tried hard to act like the perfect wife, but it felt hollow. One afternoon, I caught her installing a hidden camera in my office. She was oblivious to the fact that I could monitor her every move from my laptop. On a Saturday morning, I found her sitting in the kitchen, sipping coffee with a smug look on her face. Where are the kids? I asked, narrowing my eyes. At my parents' house, she replied nonchalantly. Why? We haven't been intimate in months, I said, my voice flat. And I don't think you're doing this because you want to change things. You're just trying to manipulate me. She blushed, her eyes darting away. It's been 8 months, she corrected. I stared at her, unimpressed. 8 months. That can't be right, I said. Maybe you lost track while cheating. Her flirtatious demeanor disappeared in an instant. I've done everything you've asked, and you still treat me like a leper, she said sharply, her voice shaking with frustration. I want more respect. Is this how you want to handle it? I asked coldly. Yes, she snapped. I'm done being treated like an outcast. I've deleted all your copies of the videos, the cloud, the flash drive, everything. I'll stay with my sister until you're ready to treat me better. I'll pick up the kids from school and have dinner at my place without you. She grabbed her bag, and her sister Lily emerged from the dining room. Together, they walked out the front door, leaving me in the silence of my home. Over the next 2 months, Olivia began spinning her own narrative. She told her parents, our children, and even mutual friends that I had fabricated the evidence. She insisted the photos were fake, that I had photoshopped everything without the original files. Even my parents started to doubt me. The kids were caught between conflicting stories, unsure of what to believe. My brother and his wife remained my only allies, but I still felt isolated. Determined to turn the tables, I approached her lover with a new offer. This time I spared no expense. A hotel room on a beach in Florida, first-class tickets, and $5,000. I insisted the footage be taken on the balcony, ensuring it would be irrefutable. Olivia was thrilled about the trip, even bringing Lily along for the ride. 2 weeks later, I met her lover to review the footage. It was perfect, exactly what I had requested. I encrypted it, uploaded it to the cloud, and secured a flash drive as a backup. Now, about your payment, he said, reaching for the money. I handed it to him but stopped him before he could leave. A couple of questions first, I said. He hesitated, then nodded. Did you approach my wife first? Or did she make the first move? I asked. He shrugged. Not really, it just kinda happened. Who brought up the idea of sleeping together? I pressed. He hesitated again. It just happened, he repeated. Who mentioned the lovemaking first? I asked as we drove. He shifted uncomfortably. She did. I glanced at him. How many women have you seduced in town? I asked, keeping my voice even. He chuckled nervously. 7, he admitted, listing off names. Most of them married. I reached into my pocket and turned off the recorder. Want to see something crazy? I asked, accelerating to 70 miles per hour. Hey man, what are you doing? He said, alarmed. Sorry, this is the crazy part, I replied, steering sharply toward a line of trees and slamming the brakes. We hit one at just under 40 miles per hour. Both of us were hurt but alive. I called the police to report the accident. At the hospital, my injuries were minor, but the police confiscated my laptop and flash drive as part of their investigation. Days later, I learned that my passenger, Olivia's lover, had succumbed to his injuries. When Olivia heard the news, she called me repeatedly, fishing for details, but I played dumb. The next day, the police questioned me about my connection to the deceased. I knew about the affair, I admitted. I gave him money to stay away from her, but he demanded more. The accident was just that, a mistake. The officer asked pointedly, Do you think anyone would believe you crashed the car on purpose? I raised an eyebrow. Who risks their own life to eliminate someone by driving into a tree? The police left, but the cloud of suspicion lingered. A few days later, Olivia called and proposed meeting on neutral ground to discuss our marriage. I don't want the conversation recorded, she said. Let's meet at a hotel. I agreed but insisted on choosing the room. She pushed back, citing safety concerns, but eventually relented. Saturday, I followed Olivia and Lily to a hotel. The receptionist initially offered us room 216, but I requested a higher floor with a view of the front entrance. Olivia and Lily exchanged frustrated glances. They'd likely need to retrieve recording equipment from the other room. In the elevator, Lily pressed against my side, flirting openly. The discussion is between me and Olivia, I said curtly, brushing her off. Lily's sudden friendliness unsettled me, given how she usually avoided me. Under Olivia's orders, the room was standard. An office desk, chair, chest of drawers, and a queen-sized bed. What now? Olivia asked impatiently. Take off your clothes completely, I said. I don't trust you, and you don't trust me. Olivia blinked, confused. That's my sister. I don't want you to see her undressed. she said, motioning toward Lily. Come on. She doesn't have anything most people in this town haven't seen, I retorted. Lily stuck her tongue out at me, revealing a piercing. Olivia reluctantly agreed, and they both began undressing. I followed suit, folding my clothes on the desk and placing a custom-made pin behind them. It looked identical to the hotel's, but had a hidden camera inside. I had prepared by visiting every hotel in the area, modifying one of their complimentary pins to record video. As the three of us sat on the bed, I kept my focus on Olivia. Now that we're all here, let's talk, I said, ignoring Lily's provocative body language. Olivia, I want a serious conversation. Olivia smiled sweetly. I love you, darling. I rolled my eyes. Sure, like your favorite pair of shoes. You know that's not true, she said, trying to play it off. I shot back. I really love you. As long as the credit card works, right? Her smile vanished. Don't be so dramatic. It was just a mistake, she said defensively. A mistake, I said, my voice rising. You used every ounce of our marriage's strength to stab me in the back repeatedly, and now you want me to turn my back on you again? Darling, don't be like this, she pleaded. It was a little mistake. A little mistake? I snapped. It was a calculated betrayal. I should have known you were lying when you kept telling me you loved me. Olivia started to cry. I was ashamed. I lied at first, but I stopped when you confronted me, she said softly, her tone changing. You stopped lying when I showed you photos. That doesn't mean you won't lie about other things, I countered. Lily stepped in, trying to defuse the situation. Let's not say things we'll regret, she said, looking between us. I turned to her. Lily, how many boyfriends and husbands have you deceived? How many married men have you seduced? Lily's face turned red, but she stayed silent. Olivia looked down, embarrassed. I'm so sorry for what I did, she said quietly, her voice low. Feeling sorry isn't enough, I said coldly. My job is to make sure you feel the weight of it properly. It's not that bad, she muttered. Not that bad, I snapped. What's the difference between you and a con artist? You gained my trust just to deceive me. I didn't deceive you, she argued. Marriage is a contract of fidelity and trust, I said. You broke it, kept my end. You betrayed me. You forced me to sign that postnuptial agreement. That was unfair. Olivia protested. It's unfair. Her voice tinged with disbelief. I let out a bitter laugh. If I get a traffic ticket, I pay the fine. If I cheat on taxes, they take my money. If I drink too much, I go to jail. Why should cheaters be any different? I paused, locking eyes with her. Marriage is about raising a family and being faithful. You failed. Olivia sat in stunned silence, unable to muster a response. I pressed on, my voice cold. Do you know how many marriages that start with infidelity last more than a few years? 5%. Was it your plan to divorce me and marry your lover? Well, we'll never know now, right? He's dead. Her face twisted, rage flashing across her features. I deleted all your evidence. You can't control me anymore, she spat, seething. Our parents and children don't even know who to believe. Was it worth it? I didn't destroy this marriage, I said, my voice steady. You did. I'm just acknowledging the time of death. Olivia's anger flared. Maybe I wouldn't have slept with someone else if you'd paid more attention to me, she accused, her tone sharp. Why should I? I shot back. You never paid attention to me. We sat in silence for a moment, tension thick in the air, before she asked abruptly, Did you eliminate him? I smiled faintly, my gaze shifting to the pin with the hidden camera on the desk. It was an accident, I replied evenly, my expression unreadable. Olivia's voice rose, desperation creeping in. How could you do such a thing? Her eyes filled with tears, but I could tell it wasn't about him. It was about her. He was a good guy. I let some anger seep into my voice, my patience wearing thin. Oh, you mean the kind of guy who seduces other people's wives? That's the guy you call good? Olivia broke into tears, but quickly shifted tactics. But you still love me. I know you do, she said softly, almost pleading. Correction, I replied, my voice colder than ever. I loved you. True love is rare even in marriage. You had it from me, but what did I get in return? Your desire for a husband, money, and loyalty? You threw away real love for a cheap thrill. Millions will desire you for that, but no one will love you the way I did. Tears streamed down Olivia's face, but she quickly wiped them away, composing herself. I need a drink, she said suddenly, brightening. Anyone else? She smiled as if nothing had happened. I'll go to the bar, and we'll talk like adults. She got dressed and left. The door clicked shut behind her, and as soon as she was gone, Lily moved closer to me. You look delicious, she said with a sly grin. Lily, now is not the time, I said firmly, trying to ignore her. She ignored me, standing between my legs and leaning in, her voice sultry. What Olivia doesn't know won't hurt her. Pushed her away. No, this isn't the time, I repeated, my patience running out. But Lily wasn't done. She pulled me onto the bed, grinning mischievously. Please stop, she screamed. The door burst open, and Olivia rushed in with her phone raised, recording. What are you doing to my sister? Lily cried, playing her part. Olivia shoved me back, a triumphant smile crossing her face as she stopped recording. Now you're in trouble, she said, grinning. I have a video of you attacking Lily. They both laughed as I sat there, deflated, crushed by their games. Olivia wagged her finger at me. Here's how this is going to work. No more postnuptial agreement. If you mention it, I'll send you to jail. You get 10%, I get 90%. Full custody and support for life. Don't agree, and this video will seal your fate. Fine, I replied, my mind working quickly. I realized just how badly I'd underestimated her. Lily quickly dressed, and the two sisters left the room, still laughing. I watched from the window until they were out of sight, then retrieved my hidden camera pin from the desk and left the hotel. The meeting had gone better than I'd expected. The next day, Olivia was served with divorce papers enforcing the postnuptial agreement. When she threatened to release the video of me and Lily, I smiled. You didn't delete everything. If you try to frame me, I'll be out of jail the next day, and you'll be right there with me. Olivia backed down, but the battle wasn't over. We both hired lawyers, and the court proceedings began. I provided the transcripts of the recordings I'd restored, carefully detailing how we were still recovering deleted files. After a series of tense negotiations, a court date was set to determine whether the postnuptial agreement would hold up, and if I had enough evidence to prove Olivia's infidelity. Days before the trial, I sent forged letters to Olivia and Lily, supposedly from the CDC, warning them that her deceased lover had tested positive for AIDS. The letters advised them to abstain from intimacy for the next 12 months until they were tested. The timing couldn't have been better. By trial day, both Olivia and Lily were on edge, their nerves shot. But the judge? He was unimpressed with either side. Olivia's lawyer argued that the postnuptial agreement was signed under duress and that she had never been unfaithful. Olivia cried convincingly, painting herself as the victim. I countered that the agreement was a fair response to her infidelity and that her actions made her an unfit spouse and parent. The judge asked, "What evidence do you have to prove she committed infidelity?" My lawyer presented the voice recordings, the video footage, and the transcripts. The judge frowned. "Why are you presenting this evidence now?" he asked, his tone skeptical. "We recovered the recordings through a certified process after Olivia deleted the originals," my lawyer explained. "Data recovery is time-consuming, but we verified its authenticity." The judge turned to me. "Did Olivia delete these files?" "Yes, Your Honor. We also have a recording of her admitting it," I said, my voice steady. "She thought she'd erased everything, but I saved copies in multiple locations." Olivia's lawyer confirmed that the transcripts matched the recordings. "Your Honor," the judge leaned forward, his eyes narrowing. "Do you challenge the authenticity of these recordings?" The judge turned to Olivia's lawyer, his tone sharp. "Do you contest the authenticity of this evidence?" Olivia's lawyer glanced at her, and she gave a slight shake of her head. "No, Your Honor," he conceded reluctantly. The judge nodded. "This addresses the validity of the postnuptial agreement and nullifies claims of coercion. However, there's no concrete proof of infidelity after the agreement was signed." My lawyer interjected, standing confidently. "Your Honor, here is the transcript of the final video, along with the video itself, which clearly demonstrates Olivia's infidelity after the agreement was signed." The judge raised an eyebrow. "Why is this evidence being presented now?" "It was held in police custody as part of an accidental death investigation," my lawyer explained. "We weren't sure it still existed until recently." The judge turned to Olivia's lawyer. "Have you reviewed the video?" "Yes, Your Honor, but we argue it's inadmissible. There's no sign of consent, and even if allowed, there's no proof it was recorded after the agreement was signed," Olivia's lawyer replied, his voice steady but strained. My lawyer countered swiftly. "My client paid for plane tickets for Olivia, her sister Lily, and her lover, as well as the hotel room where this encounter occurred. The video clearly shows it was filmed after the agreement was signed." The judge looked directly at me. "Did you consent to your wife's affair?" "No, Your Honor, I never agreed to or condoned her behavior," I replied coldly. "Then why did you pay for the tickets and hotel?" the judge pressed. "I was trying to end the affair," I said, my voice unwavering. "I asked her lover how much it would take to stay away from my wife. He demanded $2,000 airfare and a stay at a 5-star hotel. I agreed, hoping this would stop it." The judge seemed skeptical. "How do we know this is the right hotel?" I pointed to the video on the screen. "In the opening scene, you can see the hotel sign in the background." The judge turned his gaze back to me. "And how did you obtain this video?" "I paid for it," I said simply. "When I discovered my wife's affair, I asked her lover for evidence to confirm it. He provided visual proof." "For what purpose?" the judge asked, his voice even. "For the divorce," I replied without hesitation. The judge scrutinized me, his gaze sharp. "Did he know why you wanted this evidence?" "Yes, Your Honor. I explained that it would be cheaper and easier to get testimony from him than to hire a private investigator. He even provided a second video for $500. The judge turned to Lily. "Your Honor," I said, "if there's any doubt about the video's authenticity or the date it was recorded, my wife's sister Lily is right here and can verify it." The courtroom's attention shifted to Lily. She froze, her eyes wide, but the judge redirected his focus back to me. "Is this all you got from her lover?" the judge asked. "Yes," I replied, my voice calm. "But he was the source of the majority of the evidence you've seen today. I paid him a total of $3,000. Olivia's face turned a deep shade of red as the full realization set in. Her lover had been recording their encounters to sell the footage to me for the divorce. For just $3,000, Olivia had kept these recordings hidden for so long. I could almost see the wheels turning in her mind as she calculated everything she'd lost. She believed this was all I had. If I had more, I would have presented it already. Olivia whispered frantically to her lawyer, who quickly requested a break as we neared lunchtime. The judge allowed it. When we returned, Olivia's lawyer claimed they had a video proving I had committed a crime in infidelity, which they argued would invalidate the postnuptial agreement. Both Olivia and Lily offered to testify to its authenticity. Olivia, feigning reluctance, spoke up. "My sister and I didn't want to bring this up, but now I see how manipulative he's been." The video played. It showed Lily screaming, "Please stop," while Olivia burst into the room, catching me on top of Lily. Olivia screamed, "What are you doing to my sister?" Lily sobbed, claiming, "He attacked me." The footage ended abruptly, with Olivia claiming that she had uploaded the video to the cloud. The judge turned to me. "What do you say in your defense?" "My lawyer has a rebuttal video," I said, my voice steady. Olivia's lawyer objected, but the judge allowed it. The second video played, showing Olivia and Lily laughing about their setup. The two of them discussed stripping to avoid recording devices, leaving the room together, smug and triumphant. The judge's frown deepened. Lily tried to slip away in the background, but the bailiff stopped her. A heavy silence hung in the courtroom, and I could see the disgust on the faces of some of Olivia's relatives. Several of them stood and left the room. Olivia's face fell as the full weight of her lies and manipulations sank in. The judge ruled in favor of the postnuptial agreement. Then, my lawyer dropped a bombshell. Olivia had a secret bank account containing more than our combined assets. She had been funneling extra paychecks and bonuses into it for years, even taking out a second mortgage on our home. The discovery of this account had been an accident, when I installed monitoring software during her affair. While I didn't tell the judge how I had discovered it, my lawyer presented evidence showing that Olivia had diverted mortgage payments into her secret account, suggesting she had planned to run. The judge awarded me 100% of the marital assets and ordered Olivia to pay all attorney fees and court costs due to her fraudulent actions. Because she had transferred everything into her secret account, I wasn't even aware of her consent for the house. Olivia and Lily were also sentenced to 90 days in jail for perjury. I received full custody of the children, the house, and 2 of our best cars. Olivia was left with just 5% of the assets, barely enough to cover her legal fees. She kept her clothes, a modest car, and some jewelry, but I had already sold it all after discovering her affair. Olivia now works as a waitress, alongside Lily. My children refuse to forgive her, ashamed to be seen with her. Occasionally, she sends me drunken messages, alternating between hatred and desperate pleas for reconciliation. I save every single one just in case. Olivia never truly loved me. She valued only what she could take, not what she could give. I keep a restraining order against both her and Lily to ensure they never disrupt our lives again.